This week, President Trump visited Texas to see the devastation from Harvey firsthand. The next big step will be funding the recovery for the catastrophic disaster. Meantime, Vice President Mike Pence is heading to the region within the hour. Joining me now is Kellyanne Conway, counselor to President Trump. Kellyanne, let's talk about the funding that's going to be needed in the wake of Harvey. It's expected that we heard from Governor Abbott yesterday that this will be way in excess, far in excess of $125 billion needed in just federal aid. That is even higher than Hurricane Katrina. Can Congress get this done smoothly in one swift step?
Dagan, thanks for having me this morning. The President has made very clear over the course of this week, on the ground in Texas and here from the White House yesterday in Missouri, he wants Congress to meet the needs of these individuals, for the money to be committed to them, and for it to be done swiftly. So he's ready to do that. He's already here working. We're waiting for Congress to get back to work next week, and he wants him to move swiftly. And can we just stipulate, we very much hope and expect that this can be one of those rare bipartisan or indeed nonpartisan moments where people put aside whatever petty, peevish politics, their resistance, their obstruction, their presumptive negativity about everything that's said and done on the other side of the aisle and from this White House, and just get the funding for these people. No one knows exactly how much money will be needed, but we know that the devastation in many parts is historic and it's unprecedented, and that we know there's no way to truly look around the corner completely and see what will be needed.
Well, Kellyanne, in the past, it's not just a Republican pushback, if you will, Democratic pushback. Well, Democrats very often very willing to vote for a spending bill, but you've had who is now the White House budget director, Mick Mulvaney, during the Superstorm Sandy bill, he was pushing for offsets. And are you sending the message to all of those in Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, like, don't worry about the offsets right now, we're going to need to pass this federal aid, period?
Well, the President has said he wants to make sure the bottom line goal is to get the money and the need to the people, and to equip our local state officials who are closest to the people in need, equip them with the resources they need to distribute it thusly. At the same time, I would just go back and reading an awful lot about Sandy 5 years later. It seems that many people objected to the funding because it was larded up with other programs. That's open to debate, but looking forward, this president has made his priorities very clear, and Congress will need to work out the details. We just hope they move more swiftly and more successfully than they had on other major issues of late.
Kellyanne, the president is said to be heading back to Texas on Saturday. Can you give us any details about his trip for Saturday?
So the plan is for the president to return to Texas and possibly Louisiana on Saturday. He will go closer to the affected areas if and when the people on the ground say it is safe and non-disruptive for him to do so, meaning safe to the individuals there. When presidents and vice presidents come to your city, as you know, to your town, it involves a great deal of moving parts. So the president and the first lady the other day, the vice president today, the president on Saturday, Dagan, only wish to be helpful and not disruptive. So he will accede to those who suggest where it is best to visit. He wants people to know that he is here for them, that we all are as a nation for our brothers and sisters in need, but he also wants to survey the rescue and recovery efforts firsthand. We know there's a long road ahead of us. Housing will be an issue. I talked yesterday with Secretary Tom Price at HHS. They're always very concerned about diseases after natural disasters like this. So there are so many moving parts. You saw members of the cabinet with the president in Missouri, in Texas, directly talking about what they can do to help people recover. The Small Business Administration through Linda McMahon. You've got Alex Acosta at Labor involved, Steve Mnuchin at Treasury. There are so many different roles that the different department agencies can play, and they will. Today, the Vice President and the Second Lady are headed to Texas to lend their support as well. So we want people to know that we're on the ground, they're in our prayers, and we know people don't just need thoughts and prayers and compassion, they need help. And this President stands ready to administer it.
Kellyanne, yesterday, the president, of course, was in Missouri pitching his plan for drastically simplifying the tax code. The commander-in-chief vowed to make it fair and easier to understand. We have this new Fox News poll out that shows that nearly 50% of Americans think passing tax reform is important, 49%, but then 78% of those polls do not think that it will get done this year. Kellyanne, your reaction to this, and there was some pushback even from some of President Trump's most ardent supporters like Ann Coulter to his speech yesterday. She called it the most tone-deaf speech he had ever given. She was trolling him on Twitter while he was delivering this speech and said this is for Wall Street. This does not help the average people. The average half Americans don't pay taxes. I wanted to get your reaction to that.
Well, my reaction to the president's speech and his commitment to tax reform is very laudatory because it's a promise he made, and we know that we have one of the highest corporate tax rates, or the highest in the developed country. Why is that? Well, it's because other nations wised up to what we used to have here, which is a much more competitive rate for our job creators. If you reduce the tax rate on the job creators, you're creating more jobs, you're giving a pay raise to the middle class, and you're giving them job security as well. And I think that those who stand in the way of tax reform in the House and Senate are standing in the way of Americans getting a pay raise. We also have to talk about repatriation. I know your viewers are accustomed to that word, but let's mainstream that so people understand there's so much wealth parked overseas legally by our corporations because there's no incentive for them to have it here. We want to bring the jobs and the wealth back to this country. And also, we want to simplify. You know, the instruction page for the Simple 1040 form is apparently over 200 pages, just the instruction form. The code itself is thousands of pages long. We spend billions of hours and millions of dollars each year, and billions of dollars each year, just trying to comply with this sucker. The IRS is the Loch Ness Monster of the swamp here. And lots of folks want it to be simpler. But look, this is a president who can do many things at once. And he is doing that. He's made very clear he's committed to building that wall. He's asked Congress for the funding. He's very serious about it. Illegal immigration, illegal boarding crossings are down on his watch. ISIS is in retreat, will go on to full defeat on his watch. North Korea has been warned very sternly to stop violating the sovereignty of our allies like Japan and to cut the nonsense. This is a president who talked about fire and fury, was criticized, and now North Korea backed away from Guam and the like. So he's doing many things at once, and tax reform is the latest. We definitely hope we can get bipartisan support. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin was there in West Virginia with our Vice President Mike Pence last night. May be a good sign.
Right. Kellyanne, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
it's great
for having
to see
me,
you.
Dagan.
Be
All
well.
the best.
Kellyanne Conway.